What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. And today is going to be a pretty fun video, I guess you could say. Of course, with the NHL still not being back and not coming back anytime soon, there's been a lot of discussion over what's going to happen with the cap and what kind of situation the league will be in coming up to this summer, and what they're going to do to help teams, because the salary cap is going down. It's currently at $81.5 million. There's been talks that it could go down to about 71.5. Some people are saying, oh, it could stay the same. It's not. The NHL is losing, or will lose, up to $1 billion, and it's going to cost the league a ton to keep it at the same amount. So there's a bunch of different options that we're going to be going through, but one thing that I wanted to discuss today was compliance buyouts. Now, in the 2012-2013 season, I believe, following the lockout season, there was basically meetings between GMs in the league and stuff like that to discuss what could help going forward, like what will help teams because of these cap penalties, and because of the fact that they're going to have to shed money. So basically the league gave teams 2 compliance buyouts. Now basically what that means is that they could use them that summer or the following summer, and they could be used to buy out bad contracts on their team. So there's a lot of big names that were bought out, like Thomas Kaberle. I know a lot of people know who he is. I believe Hansel was also bought out that year. So there was a lot of big names bought out. I believe it was 28 players. And a really good article by Luke Fox from Sportsnet came out, and he was talking about 11 players that could be compliance buyouts this year if that happens. Now, it could be 1 player, could be 2 players. It just depends on what the league wants to do. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this is going to happen or that this is the only possibility. This is just the first video discussing it. We have a long time and a lot of days to make videos, and I kind of want to split it up and talk about different scenarios every day. So make sure to subscribe to check out more that's coming about these topics. So why don't we get into some players that could be used, or a compliance buyout could be used on them. Now keep in mind, this could make for a very interesting summer, because let's say this all gets cleared up and the NHL decides, okay, we're just going to go into next season because we don't have enough time to finish the season and do playoffs, and then, have a draft and, all this other stuff, free agency. We need to just, go into the next season. So you're taking your losses, and now you have these compliance buyouts. Let's say the first guy I'm going to talk about, Louis Eriksson, is bought out by the Vancouver Canucks. So that would erase his 2 years at $6 million. And just for the sake of this, let's say every team has 1 compliance buyout. So the Canucks would not have to pay Eriksson that money anymore, but now Louis Eriksson would become a free agent. Now, it's to my understanding that Louis Eriksson couldn't sign a deal again with the Canucks and just sign to league minimum, but Louis Eriksson does get his money that he was supposed to be paid, so the Canucks pay out his full contract, and then he can sign anywhere. So a lot of players, and a lot of good players, because there might be some pretty decent players that get bought out, can sign to other teams for $700,000 to $1 million, or $2 million. It all depends, but it's going to be really cheap, because these guys are already getting their money, and maybe they want to contend, and these teams don't have a lot of money to spend. Like, there's going to be some guys on this list that there's going to be a lot of teams that will want to pay them to be in their bottom 6. They won't be getting paid those big contracts anymore, but they'll still have the opportunity to play to a pretty good level at a much cheaper cap hit. So while we're on the topic, we might as well discuss it. The first name on this list is Louis Eriksson, and like I said, 2 years left at $6 million. He's no longer putting up the big numbers that he once was with Boston. I believe that's where they got him out of. Yep. So he's never scored more than 11 goals or 29 points, which is, and by the way, I'm looking at the article on my phone so that way I can give you guys all the best information here. But he's slowed down completely. Guys, hopefully the lighting's good here, but he's slowed down. He's not playing very, very good anymore. And I brought this up in another video before, but you have to remember too, Jim Benning, the GM, of course, of the Canucks, has a lot to deal with based off the fact that they have the cap recapture penalty from Roberto Luongo. I've talked about this before, but he's dealing with that too, so they have money against their cap because of the Roberto Luongo situation, and I might make another video on that too, just for fun, I guess, because there's not too much to do here. But they have a lot of players that they need to retain that need contracts. Jacob Markstrom he's been their MVP this year. I know he's faced injury, but he's going to demand a lot of money. Chris Tanev, one of their top 4 defensemen, really good defensive style defenseman. Josh Levo, Tyler Toffoli, Jake Virtanen. Like, they might want to hold on to Toffoli here. That's going to cost them as well. So they're going to need cap space. They would love to see two compliance bouts be awarded, because they have a couple guys that, well, actually they have a few guys they could probably buy out, and I believe Beagle probably would be one of them. But anyways, they've got a chance to clear out some space, and they probably would want to use it on Eriksson. Now, keeping this going, because I don't want to bore you guys too much on information about some of these players, but Justin Abdelkader has 3 years left at $4.25 million. Now, this one, I don't always agree with the reasoning in the article, because I did read the article first and I wanted to really get Luke Fox's opinion. But in his opinion, he said that, you know, the Red Wings, they're still rebuilding and they don't really need to get rid of some of their veteran players just because they don't need to spend money right now. But to me, it's like when you're gifted an opportunity to get rid of a bad contract, and to a guy that's not producing, like I believe he has no goals this year. He has 0 goals, 3 assists, and he's a minus 14 on the Red Wings, which, I mean, the Red Wings are bad, but those numbers are terrible. He's definitely not worth that type of money. He might be valuable on another team in their bottom 6, but Luke Fox was saying that you know, they don't really have to. I think that it makes a ton of sense to get rid of cap, because you never know if there's a guy who just wants to play in Detroit and he's a pretty good player, or if you have the opportunity to sign a few guys that you could then flip at the deadline on like 1-year deals for picks, and you can use that money for better players that actually could get you something. Whereas Justin Abdelkader right now, he's not going to get you anywhere. And I know he's been on the Red Wings for a long time. They have a lot of veterans on that team, but he makes a ton of sense to me as well. Now, this one is interesting. This one's Brent Seabrook from the Chicago Blackhawks. We all know when he signed that deal, there was a lot of people on the fence of whether or not that deal was going to work out for him. Big defenseman, big contract, 4 years at $6.875 million. Now, he's 34 and he's injured. Now, here's the thing. There was just a video posted of him doing the push-up challenge. I believe Kirby Doc was the one who challenged him, and he did it. So it looks like he's healing. So because you can use this buyout this year or next year, if this happens, that needs to happen. He needs to be bought out. That's just way too much money. Chicago needs to add. They've got players that they want to sign. Alex DeBrincat's contract is going to be on the books now. His increase, I should say. They have players like Dominic Kubalik. He's came out of nowhere and had a really good year. Dylan Strome, Drake Kajula. Now, those guys won't demand huge deals, but they're going to get, you know, more than what they're getting right now. So, and that Kubalik looks really good. How does Chicago just get all these guys out of nowhere? But Seabrook, it's like a no-brainer, honestly. If he's healthy, then they got to buy him out. Milan Lucic, 4 years at $6 million. He was the thumbnail of this video. That's why you can see it back there. I made it this morning and I thought, okay, you know, this one kind of makes sense. Now, I think Lucic is a valuable guy in the bottom 6 when he's not getting paid a lot of money. But the fact that he's at 4 years at $6 million doesn't make a ton of sense. The others gave him a very big contract. And by the way, I will be getting to James Neal later in this video, but Lucic can be an impressive guy for like $1 million on a bottom 6 to be a feisty guy, to be an enforcer. And I think he fits well in Calgary, but just not at that dollar amount. I don't want to sit here and diss the guy. He has 20 points in 68 games. Which isn't terrible, but when you're getting paid that much money, it's terrible. So I can't justify him getting paid that much money, and I'm sure that Calgary Flames fans would agree, even though it seems like he's fit in quite well. The next guy is Carl Alsner. Now, this guy has been all over the place. It's been an absolutely crazy story with him, and I'm happy that he's back in the NHL, or he got his chance to get back into the NHL before all this happened, but he's at 2 years left, $4.625 million. He's slow. He's not a great defenseman. He's just past his prime, way past his prime. And the Montreal Canadiens, while they do have a lot of cap space, they also are overpaying, a Carey Price currently, even though I really like the guy. He's got a big contract. Shea Weber, he's good enough, but he's got a really big contract. So those guys aren't necessarily like, oh, they're terrible contracts. But when you have a guy like Alzner making that much money, if you can soften the blow by getting rid of a guy like that, then it just makes too much sense for Montreal. They need to go into free agency, and I believe, I don't know if he brought it up into here, and if he did, I apologize, because I'm trying to give my thoughts on this, but I don't believe he did. But you're seeing a lot of players not wanting to take meetings with Montreal in free agency, or just not signing with Montreal even when they're being offered more money. So if another big name player comes up and Montreal feels like they need to really push their chips in, then they're going to have to overpay somebody, and probably by a lot, to contend. So I don't know if that's something they would consider, but buying out Alzner just makes sense for them to have that additional cap space. And who knows, maybe they can go back after Ilya Kovalchuk in free agency. Now, the next one, Andrew Ladd, 3 years left at $5.5 million. Now, we almost seen him get dealt to Minnesota. That's said in here, and I think everybody knows that. There was a reported deal that Zach Parise could be going the other way. Of course, the connection with the Islanders GM Lou Lamoriello from their New Jersey Devil days. But those are both not great contracts, but I think it probably would have been a win for the Islanders and what they're trying to accomplish, because the Wild are just not a good team right now. So Ladd's 34. He's 50 games away from joining the NHL 1000 game club. So I would hope that he would get a chance to obviously finish out his career, so that way he could get there. And I'm sure he would. Again, a lot of these guys, like I've said, in a bottom six at a very minimal cost makes a ton of sense. But for this much money, Andrew Ladd is just not good. He went down to the AHL, 11 goals in 34 games. But, you know, with the Islanders, he only has 1 goal in 4 games since coming up. So, again, just doesn't make a ton of sense. And hopefully he gets a chance somewhere else, if in fact these compliance buyouts happen. Because, I mean, I can't see how he wouldn't get bought out. This one kind of sucks for Sabres fans, and you know, I'm a Leaf fan, but I'm a hockey fan, and you know, this one kind of sucks, even being a rival. You know, Kyle Okposo for the Buffalo Sabres. I want Buffalo to be good. Like, I'm not one of these people that just wants Buffalo to suck. I think Jack Eichel could become one of the most, you know, underrated star players to never really do much, because this Buffalo team seems to acquire people and then they just crap out. Like, look at that Skinner deal. Like, I'm almost wondering if Buffalo would consider buying out Jeff Skinner, because $9 million for him to not basically do anything for that much money. But Okposo has 3 years left at $6 million, and if you get rid of him, you're kind of just banking on the fact that, you know, Skinner's going to come back and play better than what he was, because he had some injuries. But getting rid of, Okposo, $6 million, again, softens the blow. Now, he just never really lived up to the contract. He's 31, and, you know, it even says it in here. Like, he's a great guy, and he's gone through a lot, and I'm not, you know, knocking his character or who he is as a person, but definitely just on the ice, he hasn't been doing anything. He has 9 goals and 10 assists in 52 games. His 4th consecutive year where his point totals are just going down every single year. So Okposo just makes a ton of sense. And if they got 2 compliance buyouts, I don't even know if I would be surprised if they bought out Jeff Skinner as well. But again, this is all hypothetical, as it says. This one's crazy to me. Like, this one makes sense because we've heard the rumors that Florida, their owner, even before all of this stuff was happening, was saying that the Panthers need to shed $10 million in salary. And, you know, the Panthers have done this so many times where they go out and spend big money, and then their owners are like, yeah, no, cut it back. We don't want to spend that much money. But now with a pandemic like this, they're going to have to cut even more salary. But guess who's a $10 million player? Or should I say goaltender? Sergei Bobrovsky. They just signed him to a massive deal. He has 6 years left, $10 million. And hats off to Sergei Bobrovsky. He's been doing a lot for Florida, I believe. And, you know, just, you know, for the pandemic in itself, he's been trying to donate a bunch of money. And I believe he was one of the first players to step up to help pay arena staff. So shout out to him. Man, would that suck if this happened, but they need to save a lot of money, and Bobrovsky hasn't been very good. So leading up into this video, his 2019-20 record was 23-19-6 with a .900 save percentage. If you're getting paid $10 million, you got to have way better numbers than that. Chris Driedger has a 7-2-1 record with a .938. Obviously a much smaller sample size, but that's more time that he could have been better in more games, or you never know, he could have got much worse in more games. So we won't know until this guy plays more, but it looks like he's the guy that they should really be going with. It looks like they spent too much money on Bobrovsky, and they can quickly undo that. And some team could get Bobrovsky for a really cheap price, because if he's already making $10 million, like, why would he want to go out there and garner a bunch of money? He could be like, listen, I'm willing to take this much and can compete and contend. So that'll be something to look at. Now, here's a couple other ones. We got Henrik Lundqvist, 1 year at $8.5 million. I just can't see this one happening, but again, that's a lot of money that the Rangers could clear out. They've got a team that's on the rise. Obviously, Panarin's looking real good. They've got some good pieces on their blue line right now. Fox has been playing really well as well. Their team is just good, and they have Shesterkin and Georgiev as their two netminders. There was a lot of talk that they were going to trade one of those guys, hopefully to get some help up front. But a lot of teams kind of folded their cards the second that they seen, how much money, or how many, well, technically how much, money, assets, everything that the Rangers really wanted back. They wanted a king's ransom for a guy like Georgiev, who's a backup goaltender. But getting rid of Lundqvist would, it says it in this article, but it's common sense. It would shake things up a lot between Rangers fans, their management, everything. Unless, Lundqvist came out and said, listen, like, it was kind of mutual, I'm ready to retire, then I guess that makes sense. And I think Rangers fans would be like, you know what, good for you, King. Like, go retire, get your money, go off into the sunset. But I mean, Lundqvist is still in really good shape, and he wants to play. So I don't know. This could get really interesting, but he would definitely be a goaltender that would get much less money on the the open market, because he's already getting paid a ton of money. He would probably be less than a couple million, probably less than $1 million, because the league is going to have a pool of players that are going to be picked from if there's all these compliance buyouts. Now, here's a couple other ones. James Neal, 3 years at $5.75 million. He scored 19 goals this year, I believe, with the Edmonton Oilers. He looked like he was having a bounce back year. Of course, my computer decides to. Look at this. Look at that. I'm doing that right in the middle of the video. But anyways, he came to the Oilers, and it looked like it was working out, but the Oilers are trying to contend. They want to have more money that they're able to spend on other talent. If they're able to get out of this James Neal contract, then that's going to allow them to spend a little bit more money on better talent, and obviously help them with their cap situation, because the Oilers also have a bunch of guys making a lot of money. I think Chris Russell's another option, but James Neal's production, I just don't see how it's going to get better than 19 goals in terms of him playing with the Oilers. I think that he had a really hot start, and then he really started to cool off. So I don't see it. I just can't see him getting any better. He's already 35, I believe. No, he's on the books until he's 35. So there you go. The last one here is David Backes, 1 year, $6 million. I don't know if the Ducks will do this one. It's kind of the same situation as the Red Wings. They're trying to build. Backes is probably a valuable guy to have in the room, and he's a pretty decent player. But at the same time, if I'm being honest, what I said earlier, I do believe that if teams have the opportunity to shed salary, get rid of money, then you get rid of David Backes, just because it makes sense to be able to pay somebody else to be able to flip those assets at the deadline. So you're not just wasting an asset. You're getting rid of David Backes' money to acquire other pieces to then flip, or to maybe find a diamond in the rough. So anyways, that's by Luke Fox on Sportsnet. I probably should be linking the article down below. Hopefully I was in focus. For some reason this camera's really acting up. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Recommend more videos down below. If you're new, make sure to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Join the squad. I appreciate you guys as always. And hockey is far away. Peace.